true. It's true. That's happened to me many times.
With no TV yet.
Oh, God.
That's interesting.
Your husband's still alive?
Well, and he's a big college football fan. And I said, it was finally registering with me. It's like,
They did an update, nothing I had was on.
Oh, okay.
And,
he said, I know, we're
I stayed
buying
on the
two.
phone for 2.5 hours this morning with the TSA and they couldn't get it done.
Yes, little.
Well, as far as I know,
That way?
yeah, I'm not having any trouble.
There you go.
I don't know what he'll do.
Shannon, are you ready for our meeting?
I'll touch base with her after too.
Good.
Let's see now, what was I doing?
You ready? Call the meeting to order, this being Tuesday, July 18th, 2023. First item, the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next item, consent agenda. First item is approval of the June 2023 regular session meeting minutes. Have a motion to approve that. Gonna take them separate so we can.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next item is approval of resolution 2023-11 to surplus a 2002 F-250 flatbed truck. Shannon, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, it's just a pretty straightforward request, as the council has seen other resolutions of this nature before. Just as our equipment reaches its useful life, we are obligated under statutes to dispose of property in a certain manner, and this resolution is part of that step. And then we post it on Gov Deals, and usually just take the highest bid.
Shannon, I got one question. It's probably a typo. This says 2002 and the resolution says 2007.
Oh, it's 2007, sorry,
Which is it?
2007.
So, okay.
You say so?
Heard an offer.
Okay, so you've heard information on a 2007 F-250 flatbed truck. Do we have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next item is public comment, where the public is invited to speak if they wish to. And we have one person signed up, Mr. Kenneth Kahn. If you'd come up and give us your name and then your 3-minute comment.
I don't think it'll take that long. Ken Kahn, Tulip Poplar Trail. I'm a little ahead of your schedule, but I just wanted to give a vote of confidence for one of the candidates for the ABC board. Bob Starr, I know, has applied for the position, and wanted to give him a shout out. I've known Bob for about 5 years. He is you can look up his credentials and stuff, but he's a calm, thoughtful, analytical person, and is capable of great leadership, and I understand that's a position that requires that. So that's all. Thank you for listening.
Okay,
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to address the board? Okay, hearing no more public comment, we'll move on to presentations and reports. First item is going to be council member liaison reports, where several of us serve on other boards. Myself, Vice Mayor McAllister, Council Member Irvin. Let's take them in reverse order. Betsy, we'll start with you.
Great, thanks. I serve for us on the Land of Sky Regional Council on the Board of Delegates. And we meet monthly, primarily at the Land of Sky office on Leicester Highway, although the town of Woodfin has hosted one of our meetings recently. This Board of Delegates is made up of 20 county and town governments, and it is a forum for local leaders to collaborate on regional issues. There are many times that we'll have presentations from various local entities. Recently, we had MAHEC come in. We've also had Dogwood Trust. We also have what's called a roundtable discussion where we get information from the different counties and towns as to what's going on, what grants they've received, what they've applied for. And there have been many a time after those meetings that I'll give Shannon a call and say, okay, do you know about this? Do you know about that? Shannon will also listen in, or other members of the town in all likelihood, for various topics that are pertinent to what we're trying to do here in the town. And what it does too is it just promotes us being able to work together to understand what the other entities are doing, what we can do, and just helps us stay connected to the Land of Sky, which you all know we recently used them when we were looking at our stormwater mapping and other things. We're able to call on them for their assistance in all the varied things that they do. So I represent the town of Woodfin, our board, with the Land of Sky.
Yes, is it a nonprofit or is it a quasi-governmental organization?
It's a nonprofit, I believe, is the way it's set up.
Okay, just curious, I didn't know.
And there are 16 of them across the state. There's 16 regional councils, because ours includes Transylvania, Madison, Henderson, and Buncombe, and so then there's yet another council west of us, too.
Okay,
I
interesting.
would categorize it as governmental, quasi-governmental. It's
Yeah, but it is nonprofit, so.
Yeah, it's for sure. But they, yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, Jim.
I represent the town of Woodfin on what has been historically called the Asheville Area Riverfront Redevelopment Commission. It has met monthly. During COVID was a struggle. Its purpose is to report and recommend to the city and to the county, City of Asheville. It's a City of Asheville organization, and their job is to recommend policy recommendations to both the city and county government about development and sustainability of the riverfront. My understanding that is in years past, everything from a billboard to developments came before the AARR Commission to be approved and commented on. Very little has happened, though, in the last few months. We've now gone to an every other month schedule. Elected new officers and a number of appointees dropped off. There's a proposal before the Asheville City Council to change the name of it to the Buncombe Riverfront Commission and to change the makeup of the members. Right now, 2 county commissioners are their designates. The City Council appoints 5 people. Asheville Chamber of Commerce appoints 2. 2 are appointed by Riverlink. 2 are appointed from the Council of Independent Business Owners, and then the town of Woodfin has a slot. Ours won't change, but they will be bringing on someone from Swannanoa, and we hope to revitalize the organization. Our new president, Ann Keller, wants us to get back to focusing on the river itself, and the AARRC, or whether it will be called Buncombe River Commission, a lot of involvement with groups like the Sierra Club. I would imagine our commission will pass a resolution and maybe lobby the county commissioners as they consider banning single-use plastic bags. There's some data that's come forward on that. But the future of the Riverfront Commission is a little bit cloudy now. The new officers say we're going to reinvent ourselves. So not that they will tell us what to do on the river, things like that. But I asked the question when I first got on the board, how did y'all feel and what was your process of reviewing the Greenway and Taylor's Wave? And they said, well, we had no role in that. So I was a little confused as to what this commission's role is. I think it's one in transition, and I will keep you posted. We've had some fun meetings. We've learned. We've met on the riverbank a couple of times, but the group went into a sleep mode for 3 months. Now we have new officers. We've had 1 meeting. We'll meet again in August, And if the Asheville City Council approves the new structure, then we will move forward with it.
Any questions? I will add that I served on that thing for a number of years, and the reason that we asked for a seat on it, we were playing in the Greenway.
Really? Okay.
Wanted to tie in with what Asheville was doing,
Right.
and it was interesting back in those days, too.
Was it really active, though? They actually did things?
Yeah, we met every month, and and Shannon was involved in a lot of the stuff with it, too, so, but it was interesting on what they were proposing.
Well, I had recommended that we get a second seat on the board. I was the only one that felt that way, so I don't really know that it matters, but I thought it'd be good, looking for more opportunities for people to get involved.
I know Mark Hunt at the time was looking for a place to have the wave, and he wanted it close to where the West Asheville Bridge is, and Asheville turned him down, and we got it, so.
Our benefit.
It was interesting. I enjoyed it, even though we didn't really have that much say-so, but we definitely had an interest in what they were doing.
I'm hoping it'll revitalize, and I hope that we can start doing things again. I know anytime you have city staff, county commissioners themselves trying to serve on a board like that, attendance was very spotty there for a while, and I'm hoping that maybe if one of the county commissioners hadn't been to a meeting ever since I've been on it, and our suggestion to him was appoint somebody. If you can't ever come, then give somebody else the chance, somebody else on your staff or even a volunteer. So I'll keep you posted, but it probably won't be until after the first of the year that we have a new charter and things like that. But open to suggestions if anybody has any. Thank you.
And last, I serve on a couple of committees. One of them is the prioritization subcommittee, and that's a subcommittee of the Metropolitan Planning Organization. I don't know if y'all hear much about what goes on, but I can tell you what we do.
You said Metropolitan Planning Organization?
Yeah, the MPO.
Well, I'm not familiar with.
Depends on what day of the week it is, what name they're using, I think. But anyway, it's officially known as the MPO. But anyway, what this committee does, once the MPO decides what roads they want to spend money on, then they take the information and add to what DOT has come up with for road prioritization. What the counties, the 4 counties that Betsy mentioned, what they come up with, except we're Haywood, Buncombe, Transylvania, and Madison. Then we have input on, we know how many millions of dollars that we have, for example, this fiscal year. And then we look at how stuff has been prioritized. It's prioritized by number, so many points for this, that, whatever. Some things make it each year, some things don't make it each year. It may be put off till the following year. We meet monthly. For example, the estimate of funds for the fiscal year 2018 through 2027 for local projects is $20 billion. Well, that sounds like a lot till you start building I-26 out here, widening 26, or building a bridge, or doing something else. But anyway, that's part of what it is. And they limit each county to a certain number of projects. For example, Buncombe County gets 14 projects, since we're the biggest one. Henderson County gets 7, Haywood County gets 4, Madison County, Madison gets 1. And we take and we either approve the list that's submitted to us, or we can, if maybe we want to take something that's number 11 and move it up to number 9 or number 4 or something like that, we have the option to do that. Then it goes back to the MPO, and they can either accept it or reject it and start on it. And it's an interesting process because we get information, and that's what this is. We met last week and got this information after the meeting, if anybody wants to look at it. It's got, the projects that are in the mill right now to be worked on for the 4 counties. And some of them may never see the project completed. Some of them will get done in the next few years. But it's just an interesting process. And, like I say, we meet monthly, and we can find out, particularly from DOT, they have their engineers there for Division 13 and Division 14. And then we can find out what's going on with road building. For example, 26 coming through Woodfin. Every time it gets put off or something else gets put off and moved further down the road, down the list, and we know about that right up front, and we have some say-so on that. But it's just a interesting process. The second thing that I serve on is the Metropolitan Sewage District Board. It just so happens that we meet the day after this board does, so I've got a lot of information tonight as far as what we've been doing. But give you a little information. We passed the budget last month for the present fiscal year. The proposed budget for FY 23-24 is $56.6 million. Now, that does not include some of the construction projects. That adds about another $50 million to what they're doing. But they're underway in the process right now of upgrading a lot of equipment. They're going to have to replace a lot of it. Some of it being replaced to meet federal guidelines. Some of it's just equipment that's outdated, and they're getting all new equipment. Capital outlay budget, for example, is a little over $54 million. So you can see it's quite a big operation down there, a lot more than you might think. And they also welcome any group that'd like to do a tour. And I want to throw out right now, if this group would like to do a tour, the board, I can set that up.
I would. Yeah, I definitely would.
But it's interesting, and there's some things that they do. For example, when you look at how many feet of pipe that they clean each year, some pipe they can reline, believe it or not. They can put a new lining in the pipe, which saves a lot of money. When they clean the pipe, it's over 40,000 feet each year that's just automatic. But then you look at, something that impressed me the whole time, and when you look at the way they respond, if you call MSD in the middle of the night, maybe you've got a sewer problem, a backup or something from one of their lines, and you notice it, and it could be coming up in your house, that's possible, or whatever. They've got a response time of 34 minutes, 24 hours a day. And I look at response times, being my past with the county, 911, look at response times very closely, but that's something that I think is very interesting. But they've got top-notch equipment. They've got about 150 employees, and I think it'd be worth it. And any group here, if you wanted to go down to take a tour of the plant, that'd be fine with them. They don't, they welcome all of that. The only thing they absolutely can't get rid of, that we hear a lot of complaints about, is the smell. That they can reduce it a lot, and it'll be done when they replace some of their equipment. But anyway, like I say, they do replace linings in pipe. They do pipe bursting. They've got an own crew. They contract a lot of stuff out, but they also do a lot of it themselves. But it's their capital improvement program over the next 10 years, it's going to be something like $531 million. And for the next 10 years, each year you're probably going to see about a 5% increase in your sewer bill to take care of this so it doesn't hit you all at one time. And that's something that they've got worked out. But there's, one of their main focuses when they're talking about cleaning pipe or whatever, over the next 10 years, they're gonna rehabilitate over 400,000 linear feet of sewer pipe. And that's a lot of sewer pipe. But anyway, they use closed circuit TV, and they've got the camera system, and they loan it out. If, for example, if the town of Woodfin, if you had a project and you needed a camera system like that, for whatever reason, they'll bring it up and operate it and make it available to you. So, but anyway, that's kind of in a nutshell. If anybody after the meeting wants to look at their budget document, that's what this is. You're welcome to come up and look at it. But there's going to be a lot of changes down there, a lot of upgrades, and it's going to be for the better.
Jerry, Mayor, how big is the MSD board that you chair? How many members are on that board?
15.
15.
We've got Buncombe County, got all the municipalities in Buncombe. Plus we've got Henderson County out around Fletcher, because the way the topography is out there, it's a natural flow into our system. So we took that over last year officially.
Interesting.
Any questions?
Yeah, when are we gonna do 26 through Woodfin?
Well, maybe in our lifetime.
Maybe, okay, just checking.
One thing I did say, Mayor, you're probably aware of, the Coates sold his building down around Riverside Drive to DOT. So to me, that's a good start.
Who did?
Coates. I saw it in real estate transfer
The
Sunday.
little parcel that they talked to us about?
Sir?
The little parcel that they talked to us about, or is this a different parcel?
Oh, no, it's different. It's a big parcel. It's not in Woodfin. It's on city side, but you're aware they're going to move Riverside Drive during the 26th expansion, and they wouldn't have bought that building just to have it.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Me too, but they spent $3.8 million on that building.
If you look across the river, up where the trestle is, kind of up in towards where what is that now? It used to be the Hilton. Up in there, they're cutting trees now where they're coming around, start getting ready to come across the river with another bridge.
There at Southern State.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It'll come all the way. That's one reason Buncombe County is holding off on the Greenway. You want to spend several $1 million and DOT come and dig it up, because they certainly won't reimburse you for it.
Interesting.
Okay, moving on to the town manager report, Shannon.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. To begin my update this month, I'm going to report on the contracts, purchase orders, or agreements that have come in the last month. We've only had one in the last month, and that is for the PSIP agreement, or the Public Safety Interoperability Program. Now, Chief Dykes is going to go into more detail about this agreement, what it includes later on in the agenda, so I won't get into a lot of detail now except to report on it being something that came in the last month. Some other departmental updates I'd like to offer in the administration department. Our Town Hall Town Center initiative continues to roll along. We had our second steering committee meeting on July 6th. The main thing I want to share about that meeting is that the outcome of the meeting was that the steering committee decided to move forward with studying just this site. So we've eliminated the community center site as an option now, and the consultants from this point forward will concentrate just on the existing town hall site for redevelopment opportunities. The consultants returned the following week on July 12th for a tour of Town Hall. They had been in Town Hall several times before that, but they had never really been through all of the corners and rooms to kind of see what we have And then during the tour, and then after the tour, there were several conversations with staff. I think Councilmember McAllister also joined us, just to share with the consultants what the town's needs are specifically as it relates to space. So they're going to go back, take this all into consideration, and kind of help come up with a plan so that we can appropriately scale the building for not just our current needs, but for future needs as well. The next meeting of the steering committee will be on August 1st, and they call that their Big Ideas meeting. I don't know exactly what that involves, but I'm excited to find out. And then immediately following that meeting, we're going to go tour the East Asheville Library. And prior to our meeting that just occurred, the second meeting on the 6th, there was a tour of the Weaverville Community Center. So one of the earlier steering committee conversations focused on good examples of public facilities in our area, and a number were identified, including the two that I just mentioned. And so tours of those facilities have been arranged so that we can kind of get a sense, the steering committee members and the consultants and the staff all can get a sense of what goes into a good public facility and what do we want to take back to our project. And then the only other update I'll offer under administration is that now that the budget has been adopted for fiscal year 24, we're moving into our audit season, so our finance staff will be pretty covered up for the next couple months as we work through that. Other departmental updates in our
Wait.
place. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Could
Yes.
I ask a question about the town hall
Yes.
situation? How is the steering committee navigating the uncertainty with how much land we'll have to build on in this parcel?
We certainly know what the minimum is, and we know what the maximum could be. So they will probably run through multiple scenarios, including one with the additional land and one without the additional land.
Okay.
Or maybe multiple additional and not. So yeah, they'll do, that was one of the reasons we needed to narrow the number of sites down, because they're going to do multiple studies of whatever site we move forward with.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to departmental updates for the police department. We continue to recruit for patrol officers. Truthfully, this is probably going to be a bullet in my town manager presentation for a while. This is a very challenging recruitment era right now for police. It's probably no surprise to folks. It's not just a regional problem, it's a national problem. So it's going to take a while. It's slow going. We've done well so far, though. We have managed to grow our ranks, and so I give Chief and others credit for that. So we'll just continue kind of trying to chip away at that. We're excited that now that we've been able to add a couple officers to go ahead and move forward with filling one of our 2 detective positions. That posting is up, and it'll be up until, I think that's next Monday. And then after that, we have the captain's position. We're just putting the finishing touches on that job description, and that should be posted this week. Both of these positions are going to utilize an assessment process, so we're going to have candidates will be walked through multiple input opportunities in order to kind of narrow the field down to choose the best possible applicant for these positions. A few community policing initiatives that we have ongoing that I'd like to share. A couple of them are sort of national programs that the town has participated in historically, and COVID kind of put a damper on some of these, including National Night Out and Public Safety Night. These are dates that are set by, I'm not sure who decides the date, but it gets set nationally, and then different municipalities or police departments will organize activities on those particular dates. The Public Safety Night is collaborative. It's all of the emergency providers come together for that event. The National Night Out event, I believe, is in August. August 1st. So I want to invite everybody here to come join us. We'll have more information about that, and we'll be posting more on that soon. A new initiative that I'm really excited about is some of our officers organized a meeting with some of our community partners to talk about how can we best reach out to our Hispanic community and engage them more in town business, and also just to help communicate and build trust that, you know, they're entitled to our services and protection as much as anybody else in the town, and just to try to kind of make some bridges and build connections. No, there were some big ideas thrown out, some exciting stuff, but no concrete plans just yet. I think we're still chewing on some of this and talking to business owners and trying to get more people participating in this conversation. But this is really exciting, and I think there's some good stuff that can come from it. So I wanted to mention that. Moving on, stormwater, we did finally receive our engineering assessment and prioritization report on our stormwater infrastructure, but we did just receive it, so I haven't had a chance to really dig into it to be able to report to you what next steps should be. In speaking with Adrian, we think that maybe next month would be a good idea to ask Bob Dennis, who's our stormwater administrator, who many of you may not have met yet, to come and do a presentation, not just about the report and the status of our infrastructure, but about some of the other program elements with our new stormwater program, and just kind of share a little bit more detail. So I think you'll expect that next month. In the Parks Department, work with WGB is ever ongoing, and we did receive some positive news last week that on our Norfolk Southern easement, we did receive notice that we were approved, but didn't want to get too excited too quickly because now that we've been approved, we have to execute the agreement, and we've been told that we should expect that to take anywhere from 30 to 90 days. So it's not a particularly speedy process, but that was progress and that was exciting, and so I wanted to share that news. We also posted the RFP for the Silverline Park Master Plan update. Council members may recall that our original plan was to add permanent restroom facilities to the old Silverline building. When the decision was made, or when it was concluded that the useful life of that building was over and it needed to be demolished, we had to move forward with other plans for permanent restroom facilities. So this RFP prioritizes that, but it does it in the context of other park amenities, particularly pickleball courts. So the RFP does also include a conceptual master plan for pickleball, some additional viewing areas, pedestrian circulation in the park between all of the different amenities, as well as maybe looking at some additional parking opportunities. So while the restrooms are our priority right now, we are always interested in finding other partners that might help accelerate some of these projects. And we reached out to members of the pickleball community, asking if they would be interested in sitting down to see if there's a partnership opportunity that could help move the pickleball courts along as a phase that might come sooner rather than later. They did respond saying that they'd be interested. We're now just sort of emailing back to set that meeting date, so hopefully in the next week we'll be able to sit down with those folks. In our Public Works and Facilities Department, we did repost for the salt shed. That RFP closes this Friday. We did have a couple very encouraging conversations with contractors, so we feel optimistic that we should get a couple bids that are much closer to our budget, and so stay tuned. I'll be sure to share that news when we get it. With the Planning Department, now that a number of our larger development applications and our annexation agreements are now kind of wrapped up, their attention has shifted to code amendments. We don't want to get too ahead of ourselves before the comprehensive plan is done, because we'll take guidance from that for sort of larger whole-scale changes to the code. But there's a running list of small changes, nothing too substantive, really more cleanup, things to kind of tighten up, the standards that we already have. So focus is on that, as well as enforcement. And that is a segue into my short-term rental and homestay update. But before I get into that, are there any questions about any of the other departmental updates?
Can you give us a quick update on the comprehensive plan process, when we might see a draft?
Very soon. They're working on the draft now. I think, let's see, do you know when the draft is expected?
We're planning to have something by the end of August, so we'll have that. Hopefully have a preview for council later in September.
So August, September. There will be an opportunity for the public to review. It will get posted for the public's review. There will be another meeting, at least one more meeting with the public, kind of an open house. So there will be still a lot of opportunity to comment on the draft.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to short-term rental and homestay update. This is an update both on permitting as well as enforcement. By way of background, I know the council is aware, but for members of the public, the town had, before 2022, had standards regulating homestays and updates. So we weren't new in adding standards. We already had them. But in 2022, there was the decision to enhance or update those standards with a few fairly substantive changes that came with it. Shortly after adopting those standards at the end of 2022, we contracted with Granicus, which is a software company whose proprietary software is designed to sort of comb the internet, the most common rental platforms, and identify the listings that are located within our municipality. And then they build a database that is specific to Woodfin that we have access to, so we can see a lot of the rental activity for all of the different listings. So for the first 3 months, that first quarter after we contracted with Granicus, they actually took some time to build that database. So that took some time. So it was a little while before that system came online. So the staff focused primarily on permitting. Council members may recall that when we adopted those standards, we provided a window of time for short-term rental owners who would become non-conforming under the new rules to obtain a permit. So we gave them a grace period to do that. So the focus initially was on permitting. The staff also spent a fair amount of time reviewing town documents and records. So looking through all of the old boxes of permits, our old files, council meeting minutes, email records, things of that nature. Anything having to do with short-term rentals or homestays, they tried to get their hands on it so that we could have a good idea of what went into certain decisions for different properties. For the last 3 months or this last quarter, the focus has kind of shifted away from permitting, although that is kind of a rolling process. As applications come in, they continue to review, and is now shifting more towards enforcement. And initially, the enforcement was intermittent. It was investigating calls from citizens about unusual activity in neighborhoods. We might look at especially before the database became available, we might just kind of go and investigate ourselves or try to go online and find some information. But really not until that system came online could we comprehensively look and get a better idea of what was going on in the community. So now we know with the data that we've got from Granicus that we have 214 short-term rental units in the town of Woodfin. And before I get into these numbers, I should say just as a general disclaimer that this is very dynamic data. So it changes not just week to week, but day to day, even hour to hour. So this is as of last Friday. The system reported 214 short-term rental units within our jurisdiction. Of those 214, 108 were designated compliant, meaning they had received a permit, either an old permit that was issued before 2022 or a new one that was issued during that window that we offered folks, or it was a non-conforming use or something about it that it wasn't eligible for a permit, but we issued a zoning determination because it was lawful when it was established. So one of those two things, we determined that it was compliant. We identified 70 non-compliant, meaning we couldn't find any record of a permit. Doesn't mean that one doesn't exist, but we couldn't find a record of it. So all of those 70 have now received notices of violation. So we have now gone through those and we're in the process. So I know this number today is not accurate because I know planning staff have been receiving a lot of calls from folks and folks have been coming in with their paper copy of a permit, and when we get that, then we change their status in our system, and then that updates the Granicus host compliance data as well. So we get a record in more than one way. We also have 36 units that are not yet determined. Their compliance status is not yet determined. So that usually means that we have not been able to match that listing that we know is in our jurisdiction with an actual physical address. For safety reasons, listings never identify the address. So that is one of the biggest challenges to enforcement, is finding the listing or the evidence that short-term renting is occurring and tying it to that physical address. And host compliance has their way of doing that, or Granicus. We also have our methods. And so we do some investigation between both parties, the town and Granicus, and we will get that number down. But as of last Friday, it was 36 that had yet not been determined. And then, in addition to the 214 short-term rental units, we have 9 homestay units also within the town.
Chanel, those 214, how many complaints have you had from neighbors?
Oh, that is, so I knew there would be a question that I didn't think.
That's a lot, a few?
Somewhere, I would say a moderate amount.
Okay.
I wouldn't characterize it as a lot, but enough to pay attention to.
Okay.
And speaking about enough to pay attention to, 214 units represent somewhere between 5 and 6% of our total housing stock. That is not a horrifying number, but it is a concerning number. So it's something to pay attention to. So we have lost some housing stock to short-term renting.
Have we heard of any of the non-compliant, anyone that has since sold or stopped their short-term rental, or what are we hearing back from those who are not coming in with a permit?
The folks, so it's a combination. So in some instances, people may be able to obtain a permit if they happen to be located in one of the zoning districts that allows short-term rentals. They could simply apply for a permit now. If they can supply either a copy of a permit or something from the town that says you're not required to get a permit, no need to come in, anything like that, then we'll work with them on getting them grandfathered, either through zoning determination or issuing a permit. So we do that. Others, the short-term rental market is getting fairly saturated. And you hear this in other municipalities too, that, people who would have been able to rent almost every night of the month in the fall, like they're now at 50% occupancy. And so for some folks, it's causing the numbers to not work out. And so they might be interested in selling or converting back to long-term rentals, so it's a mix. For some people, they are switching to long-term or monthly. We consider monthly rentals to be long-term. Some homes might be able to be adapted for homestay. So that's another option that's available to people. So we just kind of try to share with them what the options are and let them make the decision and how they want to move forward. So I've got a few graphics just to kind of help visually illustrate what we're looking at. So the numbers I reported earlier, 214 short-term rentals, only 9 homestays. So you can see visually we have a lot more short-term rentals than we do homestays. That's not too surprising. Short-term rentals, the town did allow them at one point in time, and so a number got established, and for a variety of reasons, I think a short-term rental is more attractive to an investor than a homestay anyway. So the homestay numbers are growing. I think most of those 9 permits have been issued since we adopted the standards, and some of those may have been pre-existing that we issued the permit for, but I think most of those are new ones coming online. Another graphic showing the percentages of compliant, non-compliant, and not yet identified or not yet determined. So as we work through those 70 NOVs, that pie chart's going to change, and a good bit of it should become orange. We will get that purple slice of the pie down. I feel fairly confident it'll take a little work, and it's slow going, but between host compliance and staff, we'll be able to identify a lot of those. And then the non-compliance is just a matter of us working through what folks' options are, and as they either stop renting or do long-term or any of those other options, that'll also change. Here's a map that helps illustrate the distribution of units in the town. So you can see there's a couple clusters, one right in what we call Old Woodfin, or the core of the town. And then the other cluster is basically along the north-south corridors. And of course, there's a smattering everywhere, but you can see those are kind of the 2 main areas of where we see rentals. Of the non-compliant rentals, this is a bar graph that shows how many are in our residential districts versus community shopping. This shouldn't be a surprise. I almost didn't include it in the presentation because we allow short-term rentals in community shopping. So there really shouldn't be a reason to have a non-compliant short-term rental in the community shopping district. The only reason you would not be able to obtain a permit in one of these districts is if you already own one. So we adopted, one of the standards we adopted was limiting the number of homestay or short-term rental permits that any one ownership entity could have. And so that could be a problem. There's also a limit on the number that a multifamily, that can be included in a multifamily building, that sort of thing. I suppose that's a possibility here too, but I think that's going to be the main limitation for anybody in one of the non-residential districts. This chart shows the number of units that are 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom. This is important because in addition to not allowing short-term rentals in our residential districts, one of the other standards that the town adopted was, actually it wasn't a standard, it was a definition. We adopted a new definition for short-term rental that limited the number of bedrooms. And we did that on purpose because anything more than 3 bedrooms, it could still potentially be permitted in one of our commercial districts. We're just not going to classify it as a short-term rental. We're not going to permit it in the same way. It's going to be some other sort of lodging facility, and it may have to meet a different standard. So the majority you can see are 1, 2, and 3 bedroom. We wanted to control the number of larger units because our experience has been this is the greatest number of complaints. The nuisance calls that we get are about these larger homes that have 4, 5, 6 bedrooms. Obviously, they can support larger parties of people, and there's just a lot more activity, and there's more opportunity for conflict and disharmony with residential neighbors. And then the last graphic I have illustrates the percent of permit holders that own just a single permit or have just a single unit. So you can see the very large majority of folks who operate a short-term rental or a homestay just have the one. The handful that we have who own more than one, they all predate the changes in 2022. So these were existing short-term rental units that folks had a number of them. And so they're allowed to maintain them. We permitted that. They just can't add any more to their inventory. So that concludes my update. I'd be happy to answer any questions. If I can't answer your question, I'll be happy to take it back and we'll get an answer for you. Ronnie, I'll get that question about the number of complaints we've received.
I was just curious. When this first started, the town doing the short-term rentals, it was complaint-driven.
Mm-hmm.
Just curious if it's went up or down.
I will try to find that out for you.
For the 70 non-compliant, did I hear you say that we've already sent NOVs to all of them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Rough time frame for when that happened?
Oh, it's within the it goes in waves. So I think the last wave went out last week.
Okay.
Last week.
For our Board of Adjustment, I mean, if there are a number of appeals, we may need to have some sort of specialized training because that's not something they've seen at all.
Yeah, well, knock on wood, we haven't had anybody threaten an appeal yet, so.
Impressive.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we do work with people to the maximum extent that we can, so, yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to new business. Shannon, first item, Woodfin ABC Board Member appointment.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to make a brief introduction. I'm going to turn it over to council members. So just for a background, our local ABC board, this is a board that is established through the state of North Carolina. There's pretty lengthy state statutes about the management of ABC boards and ABC operations. And they are, of course, established to oversee and manage the alcohol and liquor sales in North Carolina. So I'm not talking about restaurant liquor sales. This is, not bulk necessarily, but through the stores. We have one store in Woodfin, located at 142 Weaverville Road. Board appointments, and this is per the statutes, board appointments are made by the governing body of that municipality, and that's you all, the Woodfin Town Council. So this body will make appointments to the ABC board, even though the board effectively operates outside of town government. So we have, our local board is a 3-member board. They all serve staggered 3-year terms. So with one member going off, he also happens to be the chair. So that requires 2 appointments by the Woodfin Town Council. That is one to fill the seat for a new regular board member, and then the other is to appoint a new chair. As we do with all of our board volunteer opportunities, we post on the town's website that we are accepting applications for this particular board seat. In this case, we posted it, I think it was over 60 days, but it was a good while. We also do email, social media blasts. We sometimes post it on our sign out front just to try to get the word out for anybody who could be interested. We received initially 4 applications. One of our applicants later withdrew, narrowing the pool down to 3. And then after reviewing those applications as well as other supplemental information, our council is choosing to interview 2 of our 3 applicants. And so this evening, we have Jackie Craig and Robert Sturr with us. And with that, I will invite, should we just invite Ms. Craig up to kind of get things started? Or
Sure.
Jackie, if you'd like to join us up here, and if you could just introduce yourself and speak into the microphone.
My name is Jackie Craig, and I've lived in Woodfin for 25 years.
No one's jumping in. I'll go first.
Okay.
The ABC structure is kind of weird in North Carolina. It's a state-enforced monopoly, and we don't have any control over the prices that we can set, which means that there's really only one way to drive profitability, which is by lowering costs. We have one store. Neighboring municipalities like Weaverville and Waynesville have one store, and they've got drastically higher profit margins than we do. I think the Winston-Salem Journal did a deep dive into this, and what I see from there is that Weaverville's profits are in the mid 400,000 range. Waynesville's above 600,000. Woodfin's at like 138. Do you have any ideas about how to minimize those costs, how we could best minimize those costs to bring our profit margins into something nearing the ballpark of our neighboring municipalities?
You would just have to look at all the costs for your employees, your rent. If the state sets all the prices, it's really hard to determine how you could make the profits better, other than, like, you could have better customer service and people want to go to Woodfin as opposed to Weaverville. I don't think you compete with Waynesville.
Yeah, Waynesville's larger. Weaverville's smaller, but they both seem to drastically outperform us somehow, so.
Well, and Weaverville's over there in the plaza with Walmart and Lowe's.
They don't keep
That's
near
helps
the
to
stock
help.
Lipton keeps. Our money's tied up in a lot of stock.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Jackie, tell us a little bit, if you don't mind, about you've operated your own business for 43 years and handling your own accounting, all of that. Talk a little bit about what that entails.
I own a private shop downtown, Appalachian Craft Center. We represent about 150 different artists from the area, and I'm responsible for getting the artist, paying the artist. I do my own accounting till the end of the year for the taxes, and then I send that out, and keeping the store stocked.
Thank you.
Jackie, I have a question. Should the ABC store employees' salaries be public information? In your opinion?
I think all salaries in North Carolina, if you're employed by the state, that they are public.
They're not state employees, is my understanding.
Town employees, though.
Sorry?
They're town employees.
They're
Oh, they're not.
No.
They get state benefits, don't
Who
they?
hired? Now, I'm
Don't
confused.
ABC,
So it's a separate board. They're board employees. They're employed by the ABC board.
There's a data analysis company called governmentsalaries.com. And according to their analysis, Woodfin's ABC board, Woodfin's ABC store employees, average salary is 35% higher than the average in the United States. Is there a particular reason for that, if that's accurate?
if that's accurate, maybe you just have the best employees.
Okay.
But, yeah, but
Fair
I have.
answer. I've been concerned about the cost model. You know, Woodfin, we spend 19% of gross sales are spent on expenses, which I would imagine is labor and rent. But Weaverville is 13% and Asheville's 12%. Is there something unique about the Woodfin store that causes the cost model to be that much higher?
I would say the rent's steady, and if you had more sales, the volume would bring down that percentage of what you're spending on rent and employees, if that's what's included.
Okay. And I thought it was important to note for everybody listening that both Woodfin and Weaverville, 100% of their profits go to the town general fund, or supposed to, whereas in Asheville and Black Mountain, they split it between the city or town and the county. So it's good that we do have that as a potential revenue source. We're just, compared to other ABC stores in towns, we're not getting as much revenue coming to the town. And as Sherry can attest to in this year's budget, to balance it, you know, we really had to stop some things. So we're interested in any idea or opinion that you might have on how to get sales up. I know it's difficult. You have a social media presence of some kind, or does the store, or would you support them having a social media presence?
I think a social media presence would be good, but I think this store employees could get more people in by offering different suggestions about things they could get to go together, or drinks they could make.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Just from the information that you gentlemen have, are the Waynesville and Weaverville stores, are those owned by the town or by the board, whereas we're paying rent, or are they paying rent also?
This was aggregated for every municipality and every county, so it didn't go into that level of detail.
Okay, because that's what I'm questioning, is if we're paying a lease amount, plus we've just added on there, I'm sure that increased what we're paying out. Is that going to make a difference in what we have in profits here?
But I don't think a town can own an ABC store.
Oh, yeah, we used to own it.
Yeah, we used to own that building, yes.
Own the
The
building,
town built it,
Yeah,
and they own the building and the land,
anyway.
and we sold it to the ABC board?
Well, I believe it belongs to an individual.
yeah, that we pay rent
So we
to,
sold it to an individual who rents to the store?
Right.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
I don't
So
know
I
if-
don't know how that factors into, yeah.
You know, Jim, maybe, maybe it'd be a good idea if we sat down with the existing board members and ones that's been there a while, and the store manager for some of these questions.
I couldn't agree more, yeah.
I mean, they're good questions.
I think that might be a useful addition. I think for this appointment process, my main question is just, I think if I could like leave with one goal for whoever we appoint, it would just be, I think there's a need to take a hard look at how to increase the profit margin, knowing that you don't have all the details yet, but I think just knowing that you have a willingness to dive in and really do that investigative work and figure out how we can maximize those profits. Is that kind of the perspective you think you'd be bringing to this role?
Yes, because you could have analyzed to see why Woodfin's not making as much as the surrounding towns.
Yeah.
It may be that it's just smaller.
Yeah.
Maybe they just need to turn on their sign at night so that people come off the interstate. I mean, yeah.
I do know for a fact with the addition that the town, that the ABC store holds a lot of inventory. And I guess for me, to answer your question, would be, we'd have to apple the inventory between Woodville and Waynesville compared to Woodfin. if we keep 100 cases of Jack Daniels, they keep 50 cases, that's a lot of profit.
Yeah, the reason I've heard for why they do that is that it goes back to we don't control the prices, so we don't
Right,
control what we
right.
sell it for. But if you can find a deal where you can buy a whole bunch at one time, you can then theoretically reap the benefits. That would still show up in the profit line, though. So
Right.
that's what I keep coming back to.
Right, and, that'd be a good question for, I guess, the manager and the existing board that's been there for a while. Somebody coming in new certainly wouldn't.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of just on as long as we're taking that line of looking into the role.
Thank you.
Last question I would ask is, why are you interested in doing this?
Just to be interested in the Woodfin that I've lived in for 25 years and give something back to the community.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Mr. Sturp, next.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bob Sturr. I lived here in Woodfin for just over 3 years. Love it here. And just to answer your last question, I have pretty much the same reason as the other candidate, that I want to serve the community, and I think I bring a certain set of skills that might be helpful for this position.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask, I want to ask the same question. Do you think that the store employee salary should be public information?
Yeah, I do. I think as a government entity, it's reasonable to expect that that information be public. I did look at some publicly available information over the last couple of days, kind of comparing Woodfin to Asheville and to Weaverville, and I understand that Asheville is a much different animal because of the size. But in kind of responding to some of the questions were asked earlier, Weaverville has about twice the revenue of Woodfin, so that accounts for some of the differences in the profitability. There's a big difference, and I haven't had a chance to dig through it, in the cost of goods sold in terms of the margins between Woodfin and Weaverville. And the salaries they're marginally higher.
Weavervilles or Woodfins?
In Woodfin.
In Woodfin.
Yeah, a couple, 1.5%, 2.5% higher as a percentage of sales versus Weaverville. I just wanted to just talk about my approach to this position. I kind of thought about why I wanted to do this and what I wanted to accomplish. I think looking through the financials that were available online, looking through the ABC board minutes that are available, I really came up with four things actually. I wanted to work with the board, the existing board and store management to improve profitability, which you've obviously addressed. I think marketing is one way to improve marketing is one way to do that. Social media certainly is a component of that. Also looking at the expenses very carefully, which I've done in my own businesses and continue to do. And also benchmarking, just working on Councilman Edgerton's comments about comparing what we're doing to towns of similar size and similar type of income demographics to see really what the situation is here. Second, to improve the transparency of the board and its activities. In reviewing the minutes, it was obvious that there's been some dissent and some issues amongst the board members in the last few months. I noticed also that the board minutes for the last 2 months haven't been posted yet. So that's a second issue, a second objective of mine. The third is to improve the participation and communication with the town council, because I know there's been issues with board members not showing up for meetings and so forth. And the last is just to improve the working relationships between the board and the store. It seems like there's some contention there as well. So that's kind of a broad statement of what I'd look to work on as a board member.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
On the profitability piece,
Yeah.
you mentioned something that I hadn't looked at, so I wanted to pick your brain. I think I heard you say that Weaverville's costs of goods were lower than ours.
Yeah, and I haven't had a chance, it looks like all the included taxes and disbursements to the state and so forth were included in that. And it seemed like the cost of goods sold here were significantly higher, and maybe that has to do with the inventory piece and how that's calculated. But it was kind of in the order of 75% versus 50% gross profits.
Okay.
So, and again, inventory would be one area to look at. I was going to just respectfully just point out that reducing inventory will provide cash on a one-time basis. It doesn't necessarily affect the profitability overall, so.
And I'll ask the same question I asked in your prior background. Talk a little bit about accounting, finances, all of that, please.
Sure. So part of my experience, I've done a lot of different things in my life. Part of my experience was operating a retail store in Charlotte. It wasn't a liquor store, obviously. It was a comfort footwear store. Did my own accounting. Was the general manager of the store, did hiring and so forth. And ran that for 8 years. I currently own a real estate investment company that focuses on commercial real estate, and I've run that for 2 years. We bought our first properties earlier this year. I have a management company that runs the properties that are in Georgia, and I spend a lot of time going through their financial reports that come to me to look at areas where we can save money and to improve revenue and so forth. So in addition to that, I worked as an investment, actually a stock analyst for 20-plus years, and spent a lot of time looking at financial statements. I had the opportunity to meet with CEOs and CFOs of large Fortune 500 companies and to ask them hard questions about what they're doing and what their strategy is and so forth. So that's kind of a very high-level view of what I bring to the table.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank
I
you.
appreciate your consideration.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is going to be the appointment of a new ABC board member and appointment of a chair.
On the chair piece, that rightly or wrongly wasn't totally on my radar. Was there a staff recommendation on that, or is there a volunteer among the existing board members?
There is a volunteer among the existing board members. Tom Spradling, who is the most senior of the remaining board, or the existing board members, is willing and able to take that. And historically, it goes to the most senior board member.
Okay.
And Tom is here.
Okay. Oh, there.
Oh, hey,
Can see.
you ready for motions, Mayor?
Okay, I'll entertain a motion. You're going to take the board member first, then we'll do the chair? Sure. Okay.
I nominate Bob Sturr as the new ABC board member.
I second.
Motion and a second. Do we have any other nomination?
I would nominate Jackie Craig.
Have a second to that?
I'll second.
Okay,
Now what?
that's the two we've got. Do I have a motion to close nominations?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, how do you want to vote? Secret ballot, or what do you recommend?
No.
It'll be public eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I mean,
Names on them and track them.
Show of hands.
Can we have more than one motion? I think we.
Yeah, I
Just do
really
one
think
motion, right? So take the first motion.
Being that you only have one seat to fill and two candidates, you really need to entertain a motion to name one of them and have that motion voted on.
Okay, we'll back up and I'll entertain a motion for a board member.
Or one of the motion makers to withdraw.
I withdraw my motion.
Okay.
So first to be
Yes,
Robertson.
one pending motion.
Okay, we got one motion. Somebody want to make a motion, we appoint.
I've made the motion to appoint Bob Sturr.
Okay. Since we've got a second already, do we have all in favor of appointing Bob Sturr to the ABC board, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, have one opposed. Next item is appointment of the chair of the ABC board.
I nominate Bob Sturr to be the chair. I think we need new blood, not necessarily new blood, but we need new perspective. And the fact that we've got a person with his background and education, including being a submarine commander, I think it'd be in our best interest to let him take the reins and move ahead with it.
Yeah. Just vote
How,
Bombs there.
I've got a question on that. They have a legal vacancy on the board, correct?
on nominating him also. to
You
be
can
the
No,
chair.
nominate
To be the
it.
chair.
Among the membership, you have to name,
thank
of the
you.
ABC board, you have to name one of the two be
So,
chair.
so with the appointment of Bob, you now have three members, Mr. Spradley, Ms. Feingold, and Mr. Stern.
On that
Yeah,
information
I was
that you
confused also.
gave us, what was the terminology regarding the most senior?
Well,
So that is just what has been shared, you know, historically. You don't have to follow what has happened historically.
The statute says the appointing authority shall designate one member of the local board as chair. So designation is what you're doing among that group, and that's the sum total of the law.
And I've moved that Mr. Stir take that position. If you don't agree, I'll go with whatever the council agrees to do. But that's my.
Okay, do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Do we have any other nominations?
I'm gonna make Tom,
We have a motion and a second, so you
Yeah.
don't need to take any more nominations, just do one.
So you can see if there's further discussion about
Yeah.
that motion.
Exactly.
I guess my only question is if Mr. Stir is willing to accept the nomination.
See if there's further discussion.
Then you can take a vote.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this?
No, not now.
I will comment that I appreciated Mr. Stirr's support of a more transparent ABC board and better communication with this body. And that's the reason for my support of him.
And I'll make the comment as to why I feel that way. We just had too many blips in the last year, year and a half. Starting with the representative repeatedly not coming before us, an inability to get the staff to follow state law during COVID. My personal preference is somebody new with a different perspective and see if we can't get sales up, profit up, because the town needs the money. And it just seems like there's got to be more profit in there somewhere.
And I think with some of the suggestions that there was dissension among the group, that Tom Spradling is someone who knows this process, has done this for a while, has lived in Woodfin for many years, is knowledgeable of the ABC store, and for that reason, for continuity at this point, that would be why I would be in favor of Tom taking over this position. And I'm delighted that Mr. Stir is going to do this, but I feel, strongly that to at least have a year or so under his belt, or some period of time, would be beneficial. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, can we hear from Mr. Spradling before, he's heard from us what we feel the issues are. Can we hear from him before that decision?
It's fine with me, Mayor.
Come on
That's a
up,
good idea.
Tom.
Just briefly, I've been on the board, this will be my 6th year coming up. Since I've been on the board, normally people have served a 3-year term and left. I stayed because we had started a construction program to add warehouse space. And I had been coordinating that and didn't feel like it was a good idea to leave it. I've been the chair one time before. I'm familiar, Councilman McAllister.
Yes, sir.
With the lady chair that didn't want to come to the town, felt like it was a waste of time. But she basically felt the same way about the rest of the board. So don't feel like the lone stranger.
Okay.
And she's gone. As far as the conflict in the board, there was a misunderstanding about what the duties of a board and a board chair were supposed to be. A board chair is not a dictator. Everybody doesn't have to follow the board chair's recommendation. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that the person had never served on a board before. On a three-member board, that can be quite a problem. You don't have time to learn what your duties of someone that serves on the board.
Are you referring to Mr. Millsaps when you say those things? I'm curious. Am I following you?
Well, yeah, that problem solved. He's aged out. He's off the board. He was the one we replaced.
I understand.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I understood that your view of him and how he operated as chair.
Well, the other thing is in a lot of respects, the disagreement was on what we were supposed to do as a board, how we were supposed to react to the staff, the management and the staff. The difference, didn't understand micromanaging. That wasn't what we were about. We weren't there to run the store. He's a good guy, but it was just a personality thing more than anything else.
And he served a full 3-year term?
He did. Yeah.
Your term expires next July. Are you eligible to be reappointed, or are there term limits on?
I could be reappointed, but I'll be honest with you. I'm like the mayor. I'm 83. You don't need a grumpy old man.
Well, and historically, we haven't had lines of people volunteering to serve on any board, much less
Exactly.
the ABC
Yeah,
board.
that's
I really
right.
appreciate you serving that long.
Well, I want to say that it is really a pleasure to see so many people apply for the position. I don't know what you did, but it was the right thing. And
Agreed.
that's bound to help, okay? But one thing I would like to say on profitability, it's leverage, okay? We're the smallest in terms of sales. We can't do anything about it. It takes about the same staff to run the store. I think our occupancy cost at $5,000 a month is pretty reasonable. We've got a good location. The only problem is we're sandwiched between North Asheville and Weaverville. And we had a brief opening. When Weaverville came along, though, they cut us off at the north. So Madison County, and believe it or not, even East Tennessee are customers. And Weaver Boulevard has tons of retail establishments to draw people into the area. You know. And they've got about 5 times the restaurant business that we have. There's a lot of leverage to profitability in restaurant business. You've got one customer and you sell a lot of merchandise. Essentially, we've got Front Porch and we've got the Crest Center, and that's it. Hopefully, the Salt-Faced Mule can bring us some business.
Hopefully.
But basically, it's a matter of, you've got to have about the same number of personnel in these stores. And we've got good personnel. But our profitability will go up if y'all would create some more restaurants, what we call mixed beverage business. We could use that. There was one other thing that I wanted to, advertising. We really can't do it. It's against the law. We're promoting sinning. No, I'm not,
So Tom, you can't stand out on Weaverville Boulevard with an A-frame on both sides?
or that, it'll blow up.
Well, then blow up, ain't it?
Oh, that.
The best we can do is that unbelievably high sign, And the main benefit of that, if you're driving along Merriman, you can't look up that far. But, it'll catch the people on the interstate. And it does work.
It does work.
I mean, we pick up Tennessee customers, and we did extremely well during COVID. The fiscal year ended in 2020, 2021. Yeah, 2020, we were up 27%. Prior to that, it was not, in the upper single digits each year. This year, the next year, it was up 17%, and then -8%, and this year, maybe up 1%. But what happened is people started going to restaurants again.
On the expenditure side, the warehouse capital improvement, I understand, that makes sense to me. Some other choices, like the additional storefront bump out, make less sense to me. I'm just wondering, do you have any sense of whether there are any capital projects that the general manager is requesting or that the board would entertain, or are we done with capital improvements for a while?
Well, we still have to resurface seal the asphalt. We haven't done that, and it's managed. It's a problem finding somebody to do it. But that's pretty much it, except Tammy would like to paint the inside. She's tired of the current color, but that's not something that's a big deal.
Okay.
You mentioned buying low-cost inventory.
Yeah.
Tammy's a master. Go in the store and ask to see the back room.
Yeah.
And see the Tito's stacked up back there. There was a sale on Tito's. She way overstocked in Tito's because when the sale is over, it goes to the regular price and we get the difference.
And then,
it works wonderfully.
And that leads into the point that we discussed before about the relative cost of goods for Weaverville. Do you have any sense of why Weaverville's cost of goods or their margins on their cost of goods would be more favorable than ours, or how that might be?
I would say restaurants that sell liquor, that'd be mine,
Well, I mean,
Doesn't
that,
impact the cost of goods.
compared to Woodfin.
yeah, I don't know how that works. I don't have enough information on how they operate.
Yeah.
But it'd be worth taking a look at. I don't know. I don't think they'd tell us. But maybe you could find out as an interested party. And I don't think there's a problem with transparency. I think we have to divulge any information the citizens ask for. They're no different. An average citizen is no different than you. You can get that information. Yes, ma'am.
Could you give me an example of, going back to the conflict piece between the chair, who is not a dictator, and the way apparently other board members want to operate?
That wasn't the big conflict. I mean, there's always going to be a difference in the way people, their favorite way of operating or a pet project or something that they feel will work better. And there's nothing wrong with that. What happened is this person, without the approval of the rest of the board, presented his version of the state of the Woodfin ABC store to outsiders. Excuse me, but in terms of the way we operate, you were an outsider. And he basically misrepresented the position of the rest of the board. He insulted the rest of the board by questioning their work ethic and who they, who they represented. And he did the same thing, questioned the honesty of the chief financial officer and the general manager. He didn't come out and say they were dishonest, but he sort of inferred they might be. And that was the reason for the conflict. It was total disregard for both the existing other board members and the staff, the management and the staff.
So it wasn't an issue of not being able to look up a procedure or a process that you would be able to look up?
No.
Do I understand?
That's right.
Okay.
That information had been available to him. Seems to be some misunderstanding of what was available. But it was available.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's probably more than you asked for.
Thank you.
No, thank
Yeah.
you. It's very helpful.
Very helpful.
Okay, we've got a nomination and a second. All in favor of the motion as presented, say aye.
The motion is
What's,
for Mr. Stir to be chair. Is the motion on the floor?
Motion you made.
Yes, sir. Okay, that's, just want to make sure, because we had almost had another one.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
aye. Nay.
So that motion
Would the
fails.
noes have it, so that motion fails. and you need
So
to know.
now we need a new motion.
Right.
I'd like to move that Tom Spradling be named as the chairman of the ABC board moving forward.
Do we have a second to that? Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No,
Okay,
No, they're just two of us.
2 noes.
okay. So the motion passes.
All right.
I don't know to say congratulations or not.
Yeah.
Cheers.
That's better.
Tom, anything, any of us, including me, who's been outspoken, anything I can do to help, please let me know. And I would only ask that you make him welcome and get him up to speed and as soon as you can. Thank you very much. And Bob, thank you for being willing to serve. That's awesome.
And thank you, Jackie, for
Thank you.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank
Yes, ma'am.
you.
Okay, next item, approval of ordinance number 2023-18, emergency management ordinance, chief.
Good evening. We will try to get through this one pretty quickly. So let me give you a quick background of how we got to, why are we introducing an ordinance for emergency management? Well, plain and simple is we don't have one. And as we were doing our policy updates, which by the way, we have now finished, we've published all of our policies for the police department and a procedure manual. So that is a goal that we're happy to have reached. But our policies quite often referenced our emergency action or emergency operations plan and our emergency management ordinance. Well, we didn't have them. And so when we started looking into it, other municipalities throughout the state have emergency management ordinances. As I delved further into it, there are state laws which explain about, states of emergency and things like that. But what isn't exactly clear, and I found a great UNC School of Government article on this, is that even though there are restrictions or impositions that can be imposed during the state of emergency, unless you have an ordinance, you can't enact them. All right? So in other words, if we have a local emergency, At this time, we are part of a mutual aid agreement with Buncombe County, and that's great for a county-wide emergency, like when we had COVID. But if we have something localized, we have two options. We can wait on Buncombe County to declare a state of emergency and then fall under that, or this entire council has to convene to pass an ordinance to declare an emergency. So what we have done is we looked around at the best practices and other policies that were presented in other ordinances from municipalities and developed what we have in front of you. And again, this helps local emergencies be handled at a local level. Again, grants authority to the local governments to impose restrictions as needed. And again, you can't do that without having an ordinance. And that also spells out who can declare the state of emergency, right? And this one says that the mayor can do it. If the mayor's not available, then the vice mayor can do that. And that saves us time. Again, if we have some localized emergency and we need to have that state of emergency declared, we don't have to get all 7 of you together, or at least a quorum together to declare that state of emergency. We can do it instantaneously. Okay. So, any questions about our emergency management ordinance? Anything that I can answer for you?
Is the wording, particularly in 5.3, the things that the mayor is empowered to do, do other towns and cities have it that specific?
They do, and that actually comes from state statutes. Those are the powers that are able to be enacted under a state of emergency, right? So how that works is the general statutes kind of give you a laundry list of what you can do, right? But you can't do anything outside of that list. All right, so that's why it's very specifically worded within the ordinance.
They're pretty drastic things. That not having a bigger list of drastic things is good. It's just interesting. I didn't know that even an emergency provision, the mayor could prohibit the possession of guns,
Off of your own property, yes.
right? He could stop the sale of alcoholic beverages at
That's a key.
Well, we won't tell Tom
We
that,
trust you
but,
won't do that, Jerry. Okay, very interesting.
I have a random question, but I can ask, I thought you were finished.
Go ahead.
If I dial 911 right now,
Mhm.
where does my call go? Does it go to Buncombe County?
Goes to Buncombe County.
Yes.
And then, do they contact you if because I'm in Woodfin?
Yep. They will call
And that's
us on the radio.
automatic?
Yep.
Okay, thank
And
you.
that happens no matter where you are.
Yeah.
Everybody is calling into the 911 call center, so it then feeds out to whether it's ambulance, fire, police, all of it.
Okay,
So it's one call center.
And if you want to talk offline about our emergency management, or the emergency operations center and how that works now with our consolidated 911 and dispatch, I'll be glad to give you the full rundown on that.
It's
Or you can ask the guy
amazing.
next to you, because he's a pro.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you.
So if there are other questions regarding the emergency management ordinance, the suggested motion in front of you is I move to approve ordinance number 2023-18, establishing a new Chapter 5 civil emergencies to the town of Woodfin Code of Ordinances.
Okay, before I ask for a motion, any more questions for the chief? Have a motion?
Sure. I move to approve ordinance number 2023-18, establishing a new Chapter 5 civil emergencies to the town of Woodfin Code of Ordinances.
And have a second, have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right. So I'm here also for your next piece of business, and this is the Public Safety Interoperability Program, or PSIP, which is a lot easier to say, agreement. To give you a little background of PSIP, Buncombe County established, actually many moons back, a data sharing piece that was between the city and the county. The goal was to be able to share information, specifically criminal justice information, between the partners, so that, made our jobs a little bit easier. They went on to expand that to include EOC, EMS, fire departments, mostly because of dispatch, right? Being able to dispatch gets a little bit into your question about what happens when you call 911, right? It goes into the Emergency Operations Center, or the Public Safety Communications Center now, and then is given to the appropriate agency. With the current CGIS agreement that we're on, we have real-time sharing of our computer-aided dispatch, or CAD, and our records management system, and also the jail management system. They're all kind of pieces of this big puzzle that are together, but it allows us to get information instantaneously. For example, if we have an event in downtown Asheville and they're calling for every available resource, right? We have some mass casualty event, natural disaster, anything like that. All of the partners who are part of currently CGIS can access that information instantaneously. Okay? CGIS was a great step up, but there were still some issues with it. And kind of give you a little bit, again, there's that timeline. Back in 41, kind of started. The current thing that we're working under is the 2002 agreement, where we formed CGIS, or they formed CGIS. We weren't part of that. Okay? And technically, we are an auxiliary part of CGIS, which is what we're operating under right now. And again, those core applications, CAD, computer-aided dispatch, the RMS, jail records management system, and then also fire departments are part of this as well. All right. So this is, again, current CGIS. And you'll see the agencies listed in green, and then the agencies listed in white. And actually that has changed. That's expanded. This is an old slide that Buncombe County created a couple years ago. Since then, under law, Weaverville Police Department, Black Mountain Police Department have become part of this agreement. Fire departments now includes all of the county fire departments. There are a few missing on there. So this has been, an expansion. But you'll also notice that the agencies listed in green are governing parts of the agreement. And you'll notice on that law one, we're in white, which means we technically didn't have a seat at the table. We don't have input into how the system's governed. Okay? So under this old/current model, because we really are in transition right now, and adoption of this PSIP agreement kind of puts us into that next step of becoming part of the new model. No role in governance other than by those original agencies. We have a fixed cost model for the software that we use. And how they determined that was, hey, we're going to charge you this amount per user. Right? So currently we pay $3,100 per user per year. For 15 users, that's about $46,500 a year under the current system. Now, since we started the PSIP process, we've actually been kind of lucky. Buncombe County has held us at 15 users. We have more than 15 users. Okay, that's the only saving piece we have right now. If they were to enact the actual number of users that we have, our cost would go up from $46,000 to about around $80,000. Okay, and also part of this old CGIS agreement was they didn't plan for what happens when we need to replace the software that we have. Okay, so that's when we get into the new PSIP model, the new proposed model. First off, what this means for the town of Woodfin, or for the Woodfin Police Department specifically, is we have a seat at the table. How the governance is broken up, we have a representative of the Asheville Police Department, the sheriff, Asheville Fire, EMS, representative from the county fire departments, 911. And then for the smaller law enforcement agencies, which includes right now Weaverville, Woodfin, and Black Mountain, we have one representative from those three agencies that has a vote on that executive committee. right? So we work, I and the two other chiefs work closely together and then decide, hey, this is what we're going to, propose as what we want. This is our vote. Okay, which again is something we hadn't had previously. Also, the cost model is based on a percentage of total users and interfaces with external applications. Okay, so it's not a set fee then per users. It's, okay, well, here's what the total cost is. We're going to break that down into percentage by number of users and then how many interfaces you have. Okay, for example, say Black Mountain and us both have the same number of users, but we use more application interfaces, then we would pay a little bit more than them. Right? As it actually kind of turns out, it's the other way around. We pay a little bit less than them because they have more users. I think we have the same number of interfaces. Right? So it's a flexible cost model. Again, depending on how many people we have on the system and what the overall cost is, and then how much we're using within that system. And then finally, we're involved with the steering committee to replace the current CAD and RMS softwares. We met, the PSIP Executive Committee met last week to talk about where we're going with the new CAD software, talking about new RMS. We're actually looking at a consultant. We'll talk about that consultant piece, but a consultant to get us to getting the new software. And we're already forming the committees of, okay, we want you on the interface committee or the steering committee for different parts of this. Okay. So when we look at the PSIP agreement, this is a contract with Buncombe County, but with its kind of with all the agencies. But they are the contract agency. They are the spearhead. Under the old CGIS model, Buncombe County was absorbing 55% of the cost, City of Asheville 45% of the cost, and of course they billed us, after thought there, kind of after the fact. However, they are spearheading this. Their Buncombe County IT is really the ones that are moving this project forward, and then Buncombe County government is the agency that's making this contract with the other participating entities. So all other agencies required an interlocal agreement with Buncombe County participating in PSIP. Right, so that's what we're here for, is to look at this intergovernmental agreement. And to become part of PSIP, we have to approve this intergovernmental agreement. So it's our recommendation that we sign on to the PSIP and continue with this project that we've really fought hard to be part of. Again, we've talked about the costs briefly. Pardon me. So when you look at, we're actually going to start on the bottom right. When you look at what the total overall cost is, again, that's the cost for all the applications, all the users. There's also a consultant fee that's in there. And then it breaks that out by what's our percentage of the cost, and that's that model of users and interfaces. Right, so when we come to the highlighted area, for the software applications and interfaces, our base cost is $54,286.38 per year, and this is a 3-year agreement. Okay. The consultant cost is this is the firm that we're going to use to get us to the next phase. The new CAD software, the new records management software, what other interfaces that we will have with that. And that's $8,230.09 per year for 3 years. And there's an option to extend that 2 years if needed. And that would bring us our total cost of $62,516.47 per year for 3 years. And again, there could be some change to that, but it should stay at that number with that 3-year contract.
Chief, why would we need a consultant for the next 2 years?
So the consultant is going to help us select new computer-aided dispatch software, new records management software, how we can get those pieces to interact. we are using Greensboro right now as a model. They just went through this process. They just completely replaced their CAD system, their RMS system. And they utilize a consultant to help them get through that process. So it's helping with the, again, software selection. If there's hardware that we need to have, new servers, new, thingamabobs, whatever hardware piece that we need to
I
have.
understand the first year, I just couldn't understand.
Because it's not going to be a one-year project.
Okay, that was my question.
No, so
So it has to be updated or added on to or whatever?
right, so
Okay.
even if we started the process today, we hired the consultant today, going through the selection process for, looking at available CAD vendors, finding what works with us, the implementation, it'd probably be 6 months at the earliest we could even begin implementation, and then that's another 12 to 18 months until that piece is actually live. Because there's a lot of back end that goes into it. You have to, when they design the software, it's very customized for whoever's using it, right? Make sure that all of our needs are met, then it's fitting with all of our users. You actually have to get that rolled out, get a lot of things built into the system.
Does that include training, I would assume?
It does include training, yes.
It's not gonna be one of these things outdated the time you'll get it, is it?
Everything's outdated by the time we get it. That's the nature of the beast. But we know that our current software is well outdated.
Right.
There are many things that we're trying to bring into the system that they just won't work because of how outdated our system is.
This would allow you more access per car too, wouldn't it?
So the goal of this obviously is improved public safety. We want to be able to share data real time with as many partners as we can. Again, mass casualty incident, natural disaster, being able to know what assets are where, who has whatever equipment that we need, who can we get there the fastest. That's one of the things that we're trying to get going right now is being able to look on a screen and say, oh, this person is the absolute closest who has everything that we need. And our current CAD software doesn't really do that to the best of its ability. Any questions about PSIP?
Does that include everybody like UNCA or any of these other agencies that are gonna be using the system?
So for PSIP as a partner, no. It does provide a pathway for them to join if they so choose. We could talk about bringing on other agencies, what those costs would be for them. And I'm all for other agencies, being part of that one. It's more information that's shared. And truthfully, it could reduce our costs.
AB Tech, same thing.
Exactly. AB Tech, UNC, Asheville, Biltmore Forest. You have folks like Biltmore Company Police. Yeah, Montreat is,
Different.
they are different. But, they're small, but it would be possible. And truthfully, the more users that become part of this, it would be easier for them to be a part of it as well.
Well, if Buncombe County is gonna let them get by without having to pay, why are they not gonna include them and make them pay?
What do you
Well, they're
mean?
not even gonna be part
They're
of the
not going to be
system.
part of it
Right.
at this point.
Well, I know they're not gonna be part of, but they're gonna be part of it.
Well, they would have to.
I mean, you may as well just tell it like it is. Anybody that's dealt with the county will know that. They're gonna let them on the system. So why are they not paying for it?
The only part of the system they're on right now is CAD. They're not part of records management system. And that's just because they are dispatched through Buncombe County. Just like Arboretum has some dispatch stuff that they do through Buncombe County. Okay, that's a minimal cost right now for the PSIP portion, all right, for them. Because once we created them as here's 5 users, here's Montreat, that was the end of their stuff. They don't have access like we do to pull up their CAD history. They can't share information real time with us. They don't have mobile computer or CAD terminals in their vehicles. They don't have any access to that. The only part of the system they are is they're dispatched through through our current dispatch system, and they get to occupy, well, one at a time, because that's only how many officers they have on usually. They get to occupy one line on the screen of, here's the Montreat officer, and if he gets a call, that's where he goes to.
I do know what you're saying. Like I was running that on the 911, you remember, 5, 6 years ago?
Right. And that's the thing. So, Black Mountain and Montreat came on to the dispatch system. And, when we talked about they wanted to charge for dispatch, those costs have, I guess, have gone away. That's not going to be an issue going forward. And that would be the case for any other agency that wanted to be part of the dispatch system. But if they don't enter into PSIP, then they don't get the rest of the access. They don't get to pull their information. They'd have to do it the old school way, right? They got to go up there and request it just like anybody else. But they can't get that real time. They can't share information back and forth through the records management system.
I'm like you, they will use it eventually.
Nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, and I said, eventually I would love to see them become part of the system. They'd have to pay for it, just like anyone else, and we'll look for a path for onboarding them. But the more users that we have, it actually spreads out that cost for everybody. Any other questions about PSIP? All right. If none, we have a suggested motion of I move to approve the interlocal agreement with Buncombe County for the Public Safety Interoperability Program.
Who's gonna sign this for us? Because we should probably just add that line to it. Is it town manager or is it mayor or?
I think it's the town, actually it is the town managers that's the signatory on that.
Okay. I move to authorize the town manager to approve the interlocal agreement and enter into the interlocal agreement with Buncombe County for the Public Safety Interoperability Program.
Have a second?
Yeah.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Chief.
We need to have a closed session. Okay, we need to have a closed session, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting and go into closed session.
So move.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We're adjourned. Take a 5-minute break.